Hey girl!
Hey mama!
Ready to get unschooled?
Totally!
Welcome to Moms Unschooled,
where we break down all the things from the mundane to the magnificent, so you can think for yourself and do what's right for you.
Hey Erin.
Hey Sarah.
Welcome to Moms Unschooled. Today, I must say, I was highly underwhelmed when our guest trolled us on YouTube saying that she wanted to set the record straight and help unschool us about math and how math is taught. And today we'd like to welcome Sarah.
And we're very excited Sarah's here. Just underwhelmed on math.
Yes, yeah, we will clarify that.
Are you overwhelmed by me?
No, we are just overwhelmed with joy that you wanted to come on Moms Unschooled today. What do you want to unschool people about, and what piqued your interest in coming on to talk about math?
There was an episode a couple of episodes ago where you guys were talking about stuff, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions that happen in the mathematics that a lot of kids do right now, and I just wanted to clear anything up, put it out there in the universe, kind of get people mulling it over, I think.
We called out Common Core math a few episodes ago. I think that's what you're referring to. And you're here to set the record straight, right? You're ready to unschool us on what's up in the math program. Tell us a little bit about this.
So, standards that most people are familiar with. One year you were like, what? I was doing kindergartner homework last year and I understood it. And this year I'm like, I don't understand this. And what is this 10 frame? And I don't know what's going on with any of this. A lot of it comes down to that ideally, if things are going the way they're supposed to, we're trying to give your kids as many opportunities to think about numbers as possible.
But my problem is drawing 97 turkeys. I think that's the metaphor I used to describe Common Core. Helping you think about numbers in the best way for a kid who would be just as happy to carry the one. Mic drop. After the one.
It's a big number. 97 turkeys.
It's a great band name, though.
What kind of band? Folk?
No. Like, what was that? Like ska slash,
like Big Voodoo Daddy or something?
Yeah.
I don't know if I see that.
Well, we have to establish this before Common Core takes over music programs everywhere. Okay, so if it was not 97 turkeys, say it was drawing 12 turkeys out, then drawing 10 just to find the difference between 2 turkeys or leftover.
So your brain works in a way where if you see a number of things on the table, if it's 5 or less, almost always you can estimate properly. But once it gets into the range between 6 and 10, you have to count.
Okay.
So innately, you want to group things by 5. Obviously, we have a base 10 system of counting. Our brain already likes 5s because we have 5 fingers. Maybe we're just used to 5 so much. I see that hand all the time, and the other one, along with other people.
Okay.
So because of the base 10 system and because of the 10 frames, we're trying to get kids to come up with as many ways as possible to not count 97 or 12 turkeys, but to be more comfortable with, I think, different ways of thinking of numbers. So whenever you see an amount of numbers, you can always be like, oh, I can group these 2 numbers together and that makes 10, or I can group these 2 numbers and that makes 5.
Okay. And
to
so
make connections, I think. I think that it was focused more on procedure whenever we were kids over how would you do this? And that's in theory how Common Core should be, is after you go through a couple grades and you learn how to do this stuff, how would you approach this problem?
When does introducing the option of working the problem in a way that is best for you come into play?
I think it should be by 2nd or 3rd grade. They should be having number talks, which I think we had talked about before, which you kind of thought was like Sesame Street, I'm the number 6 talking to you.
I thought that sounded exciting, but give us a demo.
You could do it.
Okay. Fave number is 7. I would like to add that Sarah she's a specialist of math education.
Yes.
So we are not just getting a number talk from any.
Oh yeah, I'm not just I can't say a bad word that I was going to say. Can I?
You're not just some, quote, stay-at-home mom, as those people who need to get unschooled would say. You are a highly educated math specialist who is taking her time today to come teach us your own version of a number talk. So pen or pencil, I've provided you with both.
Which I like. Thanks for being flexible.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's think about a problem. And I'm going to come up with a really simple problem. And if you want to think about this, you can write it out or, whatever you want to do. And I'm just going to do 12 minus 5. So you'd go over and now I want you both to kind of pretend that I'm going to say you're both in you're in first grade, Sarah, and you're in second grade because, you're thinking of what your kids would say.
Sure.
I would say to you, Sarah, how do you figure out what 12 minus 5 is? Whenever you're thinking about it in your head, what do you do as a first grader?
I want to eat some marshmallows.
Okay, I like it.
What time is snack? And I take away 5 things.
What do marshmallows and the time have
That's what a first
to do?
grader would say, who has to sit down and do a math worksheet, right?
This isn't a math worksheet. This probably would be up in the thing.
All right.
Oh
so
my gosh, you need to focus.
You asked how I would take 5 from 12.
And then I'll give you a couple of options if you're having a hard time. Because what you just said, do you count on your fingers? Do you use a
Yes.
number line? Do
I
we
count
count
on-
up or count down? How do you do it?
I count on my fingers.
Okay, so tell
Down
me.
from 12.
Okay, so let me see that.
Okay.
She's putting down her cup, and she's using her fingers.
12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. And I have 6.
You have 6.
Is that the right answer?
So that's the first problem.
I think whenever I saw you do a number, you didn't say the first one. I think she had stage fright. I'd be a lot more accepting of a kindergartner. No, this is what I would say though. I'd say, okay, so somebody thinks she came up with 11. So then I go over. You're my second grader. You're my second grader. So we have the answer of 11, and she counted on her fingers to do that. And there's other ways to do it. What way are you going to find out the 12 minus 5? How do you think about that, Erin?
I don't count on my fingers.
Well, you can't.
What a
Don't be a
no-no.
hater. I mean, everyone learns at their own pace.
Well, I would use a tin frame and fill it up with dots and add 2 more dots and then cross out 5 of them.
Oh, using dots and filling it. I like it. So what do you think your answer is going to be? We'll pretend in the real world she, wrote this stuff out in one.
7.
Okay. So we have a 6, then we have a 7. Then I go to somebody else and they'd say, I'd use a number line. I'm going to give them a second to control their laughter. Just get it out.
Okay, so my way does not work unless you start with 12 fingers, which I see. I see the challenge in that, but I would like to remind our listeners that I scored higher in mathematics than literacy on
Really?
the GREs.
That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Yikes.
So in theory, you would get a couple of different ways of people saying it. If they didn't think about a number line, you talk to them about a number line. In theory, almost all your class should be about number talks. When they get a little bit older, kids make mistakes on their homework. You bring them in. You'd show everybody a mistake. You'd be like, here's a very common mistake I saw several people do. What do you think is the problem with it? Eventually, that's what it should be.
And wouldn't kids be like, so-and-so is not smart?
You are trying to foster an environment where getting things wrong isn't bad because you're going to get things wrong in math all the time.
I love how you're talking us through this. You're talking to even a first and a second grader in terms of a conversation and challenges that we all may face. I'm concerned, though, that those conversations aren't happening in the classroom. I am not putting down our teachers in our classrooms at all. I truly feel like there is not enough time in the day to have these conversations and let the kids figure out these graphs or turkeys or count on their fingers or tally marks and explain to them that all of that is okay. The conversation, I'm afraid, is not there. So how is this going to work?
Well, I mean, I guess you could say there maybe weren't good conversations before. Think about how many people you know who don't like math or got confused by something or now can't say they can't do fractions.
So we're doomed, no matter how we
No, I'm
teach
saying
them.
there's more than one way to do something. And I think there's positive aspects to probably both ways of doing things. Like eventually you just have to memorize your multiplication facts.
So you think, though, overall, Common Core gives them more choices that down the road they can choose how they want to solve the problem?
In theory, that should be what it is.
And ideally, they will choose the method that they are most confident with.
Yeah, and they think works best for a problem.
And Common Core has given us the ability to utilize all of these different ways of solving math problems, whereas before we just learned that 12 minus 5 equals 7.
Like whenever I was a kid and I'd learn, and I'm assuming most people probably did, just learn from a lady at a projector.
Yes.
Who just said, this is the way you do this problem. You do this next problem. She gave you 2 minutes. You tried to do the problem. And she said, the answer is this. Did you get it? Did you not? You did or you didn't. And sometimes she asked some people to write things up on the board. Maybe you did something slightly different than somebody else, but I mean,
Right.
that was
And
the
it may or may
general
not have
gist.
worked for you or your student in that point in time as well. I see.
I mean, and some kids, kids will get mad at you at a certain point if they're like, I just want to know the answer to this. But if you're not struggling to think about stuff, just like if you're a beginning writer, you're going to have to write and then you're going to eventually make mistakes. Your teacher will be like, hey, this isn't exactly, think about how you're structuring the sentence. Or I can't speak, obviously, Sarah, I'm pointing at her with my hands. She would know better than me how to correct somebody who's like a, crummy writer.
When you got your specialist of math education degree, what did you learn that surprised you about maybe the ways math is being taught, that it could be improved? Or were there any sort of favorite methods that you learned in how to teach math that you think are interesting?
I think that I think this applies to parents and definitely homeschool parents as well as to teachers. Instead of just praising your child for getting the right answer, praise them for the effort in which they're putting forth.
Well, nobody praised me when I messed up 12 minus 5.
That's because you were laughing too hard.
I'm just kidding. Okay. So that's a good rule of thumb to keep in mind. So,
and come up with the questions. If they have the right answer, how did you get that answer? Don't just praise them the fact that they got the right answer.
Okay.
How did you get that answer? Because their wrong answer is just as important as their right answer in a way. Because you can learn from your mistakes.
So,
just like if you spell a word, I'm like, if I spell a word wrong, and eventually I'm like, if I don't think about this word enough, because I spelled the word wrong over and over again, something happens, an event happens, or I see something, and I'm like, oh, that word, for some reason it clicked this time.
Okay,
I'm
so
a bad
having
speller.
your kid walk you through not just, hey, I got the right answer, but how they arrived at the
Right.
right or wrong answer.
Right.
What other strategies are helpful for parents to know who want to support their kids?
I think you could do a number talk with your own kid, kind of like what I just said, and you kind of said the same. Dice games are really easy to do. Just have like 2 dice, because a lot of people say my kids don't know their facts really well. So like, the facts up to 10 or whatever. You ask a kid what's 3 plus 6, and they'll like take forever, and you're like, you should know it's 9. So those kind of things I think help quite a bit, and kids usually find dice games fun. It's really easy to just pop that in. Something I was gonna say, and this is for a parent thing and for a kid thing, if you're really having a hard time understanding how to explain it, or you don't only know how to one way to explain it, don't feel bad with saying I don't remember how to do this, and go online together. Go to Khan Academy or wherever you want to go and find a YouTube video about it that'll help you be able to explain it.
What are some of the biggest mistakes you think that parents make in working on math with their...
I think giving kids an out by saying I'm bad at math too. I'm bad at math, so it's okay for you to not be good at math. Don't worry about it. I was bad at it too. Or kind of that giving out, or being like, I think the giving up in general for it is a big deal, or saying something else. But it's important to not be the be all of information. And once you make mistakes, you'd be like, I messed this up. Let's find out online how to do this. Let's find somebody else. And just letting your kids know that you're growing too by learning this stuff. Having a growth mindset and being like, hey, you know what? We can get better at this, even though it feels like you're not good at it right now. We're going to keep on working at this. And I always talk back to my kid about how, hey, remember when you couldn't read? How frustrating that was when you couldn't read and you wanted to and it was right there, but you kept on working at it, and look what a good reader you are now. Then math is the same way.
Why do you think some kids just feel like they're naturally not?
I've witnessed it with my own children. Sam doesn't actively practice math on his own.
Okay.
Just like how you look at everything in the world and you end up reading it, Brian will naturally look at things and be like, I have this many, or I want to count this. Or it's this time. How long is it till this time? He actively thinks about it. So he's practicing it on his own. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why innately he wants to practice it, but he practices it more. So like whenever we were doing those dice games, sometimes he would come up with the answer. He's 3 years younger. He would come up with the answers before him. Because practice, that's what anything you're good at, it's practice, even math.
No, I like what you're saying in terms of when a child just comes home and thinks they are innately bad at math. I tend to find it as a challenge on my part to help them find a new method. So if tally marks and one circles aren't cutting it, maybe we need to pull out the turkeys or play with money to feel, to get a visual, to get a sensory idea that math is relevant in so many ways. Get the fractions out and bake together to see that an eighth is smaller than a fourth. And I think if I am more focused on helping them at home along the way, that is only going to add to their classroom experience. And then, as you're saying, the grade levels, as they grow in grade, the methods aren't necessarily important as much as the answer answers, how you get there. They can choose the method.
I just want to say this episode has been brought to you by Butterball with all the turkey talk. Lots of turkeys.
So with that, being that I'm on the Bookshark curriculum that it involves a lot of reading actual books, Sarah, are there any math books I could be reading with my kids right now?
There are so many. Thank you for asking. One of my favorites are, and you can actually start these probably with Vera, and they'd enjoy the story. They'd hear the words and it'd be nice. It'd be Circumference. It's Sir, S-I-R, Cumference. And I think it's there's a series, there's at least 6 or 7 of the books that talk about different things about, it's geometry related. So it's not just circles too. They talk about other things and they get into a lot of information. I mean, these can be used up until middle school.
So he's a math knight. That's brilliant.
It's good. It's good.
So
and,
novels that involve math?
Well, I'd say they're just short stories. They're not novels.
Precious. I'm going to look into it, and we'll link it below, y'all. Thanks for that.
But I mean, and if you get into that track, then you'll see other stuff, because there's other stories that I'm just not thinking off the top of my head.
Do you think teachers know about these types of books, or how are they kind of adapting to teaching Common Core and other new strategies that they themselves may not have grown up with?
So whenever teachers go to most universities to teacher school, whenever they're there,
only in America.
Whenever they're there, it's such an understandably huge focus on literacy that so many literacy classes if you're an elementary education person, which I was at, but I was a math minor because I knew I was going to be in middle school. So I knew that was my thing. So I had a ton of math classes. They only had 6 credit hours, though, of math education to number one, be comfortable with all the material in all of middle school, which 5th graders get into some stuff.
Sure.
They get into some decimal fraction percent stuff that tons of grown-ups aren't comfortable with. So not only are they teaching them the math, but they're also teaching them how to teach math to children. And that's only covered in 6 hours in most schools. So I think a lot of the time, since the focus on literacy is so much, sometimes we neglect. I don't think I answered the question fully.
Well, no, that makes sense because now you're telling us we're understanding a little bit better that a teaching degree isn't necessarily setting up our elementary teachers for success in regards to teaching our kids math. If you went into elementary education with this incredible emphasis on literature and literacy and reading, as you slowly move into actually your own teaching classroom, you haven't received those tools, let alone know how to give the children resources.
Yeah. I mean, that's 100%. Think about how you feel kind of helpless if your kid asks you something you genuinely don't know about, and it's just one kid, and they're like, can you talk to me about, I don't like the moon does what? Or you know what I'm saying? Like your kid comes up with something crazy. Like, actually we orbit around the moon or something, And it's hard. I mean, if you don't really know the information behind that, it's hard to get them off that idea.
Sure. So not only do you have 18 children in a classroom, one just distracted with a random question.
Right.
You already had children struggling with the math you were trying to teach, and you didn't feel comfortable teaching it anyway. Yeah, I could definitely see how that could happen.
Right. But I mean, a lot of times they have people now who are like supports who come in, like math coaches and stuff, and they help people during the summer. They have workshops. They work on the curriculum more, so they have a better idea of it. Hopefully that's, I know at some schools they have coaches for literacy and math.
Great, because there's just not enough time in the day.
Right.
I feel like those classroom teachers, there's so much responsibility put onto them. And it's really great to hear that there are specialists helping the teachers help students as well.
For
Very
the most,
cool.
hopefully those are, I know there our school here, not every place has them, but I mean, just think about that also, how much time like science gets off by the wayside, and there's only like one class you take about that. This is how to teach science to kids, and we'll just let you know in only one class going through like university stuff. So, I mean, I'm not saying obviously literacy needs to be the main emphasis because everything but I'm just saying,
Math turns out kind of important too. Sarah, you definitely unschooled me today about Common Core. I came in as a bit of a naysayer and, like we'd said, a bit underwhelmed with this subject matter, but I will tell you this. Speaking to you directly, somebody who has kind of definitely the math background, bringing it in to unschool us about what's going on and why it's going on. I really appreciate it, and I can respect Common Core a little bit more, so thank you.
Thanks for listening to Moms Unschooled.
Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, or email us at momsunschooled@gmail.com. Juicy!